Okay, so we are coming up on chapter 20 of Scythe. Here we go. Guest of honor, it's called. I am going to die, Rowan thought. He had begun repeating this to himself like a mantra, hoping it would make it easier to digest, yet he seemed so closer to accepting it. Even under different sights, the edict pronounced at conclave still stood. He would kill Citra at the end of their apprenticeship, or she would kill him. It was too juicy a bit of drama for the Scythes to cancel just because they no longer had apprentices for Faraday Scythe. Rowan knew he could not kill Citra, and the only way to avoid the possibility would be to throw the competition, to perform so poorly between now and the final conclave that they had no choice but to grant scythehood to Citra. Then, her first honor-bound duty would be to glean Rowan. He trusted she would make it quick, and that she would be merciful. The trick would be not to make his failures obvious. He must appear to be doing his best. No one must know his true plan. He was up for the task. I am going to die, he repeated again. Before that fateful day in the principal's office with Cole Whitlock, Rowan hadn't even known anyone who had died. Gleaning had always been at least 3 degrees removed, the relatives of someone who knew someone he knew, but over the past 4 months, he'd witnessed dozens upon dozens of gleaning firsthand. I am going to die, he repeated to himself. 8 months more. He would see his 17th birthday, but not much after that. Even though it would be his choice, the thought of being just another stat for the Scythe records infuriated him. His life had been a whole lot of nothing. Lettuce kid. He had thought the label was funny, a badge of honor, but now it was an indictment. An indictment, sorry. His was a life without substance, and now it would end. He should never have accepted Scythe Faraday's invitation to be a Scythe's apprentice. He should have gone on with his unremarkable life, because then maybe, just maybe, he might have had the chance to do something remarkable with his time. You've barely said a word since you got into the car. I'll talk when I have something to say. He rode with Scythe Volta in an off-grid Rolls-Royce perfectly maintained since the age of mortality, the Scythe's yellow robe in stark contrast to the dark earth tones of the vehicle's interior. Volta didn't do the driving. There was a chauffeur. They wove through the neighborhoods where the homes became increasingly larger and the grounds more vast, until the residents disappeared entirely behind gates and ivory-covered walls. Volta, one of Goddard's disciples, had golden citric gems embedded in her yellow robe. He was clearly a junior Scythe, just a few years out of apprenticeship, in his early 20s perhaps, still an age where numbering one's life felt important. His features and skin tone was an Afric leaning, which made the yellow of his garment seem even brighter. So is there a reason why you chose your robe to be the color of pea? Volta laughed. I think you'll fit in just fine. Scythe Goddard likes those close to him to be as sharp as his blades. Why do you follow him? The honest question seemed to bother him more than the urinary barb. Volta became the tiniest bit defensive. Scythe Goddard is a visionary. He sees our future. I'm much more interested in being a part of the Scythodone's future than its past. Rowan turned back to the window. The day was bright, but the tinted windows dimmed it, as if there was a midst of a partial eclipse. You glean people by the hundreds. Is that the future you mean? We have the same quota as all the other Scythes, was all Volta had said. Rowan turned back to look at Volta, who now seemed to have trouble keeping eye contact. Who did you train under? Scythe Nehru. Rowan seemed to recall Scythe Faraday chatting with Scythe Nehru during conclave. They appeared to be at good terms. How does he feel about you hanging around with Goddard? To you, he's honorable, Scythe Goddard, Volta then said, a bit indignant. And I could care less what Scythe Nehru feels. Old guard Scythes are obsolete ideas. They're too set in their ways to see the wisdom of the change. He spoke of the change as if it were a tangible thing, a thing that, by its very weight, could make a person strong simply by pushing it. He stopped at a pair of wrought iron gates, which slowly swung open to admit them. Here we are, said Volta. A quarter-mile driveway ended at a very grand estate. A servant greeted them and led them into the mansion. Rowan was immediately assaulted by loud dance music. There were people everywhere, reveling as if it were New Year's Eve. The whole estate seemed to undulate in the throes of a relentless beat, people laughing, drinking, and laughing some more. Some of the guests were Scythe, and not just Goddard's obvious disciples, other Scythes as well. There were some minor celebrities as well. The rest seemed to be beautiful people who were probably professional party guests. His friend Tiger appeared to be one of those. A lot of kids said that, but Tiger really meant it. The servant led them out back to the huge pool that seemed more suited to the resort than to this house. There was waterfalls and a swim-up bar and more beautiful people happily bobbing. Scythe Goddard was in the cabana beyond the deep end. His front opened to the festivities before him. He was attended by more than one fawning bimbotech. He wore his signature royal blue robe, but as Rowan got closer, he could see it was a sheer variation than the one that he wore to conclave, his leisure robe. Rowan wondered if the man had a diamond-studded bathing suit in his wardrobe as well. Rowan Damage, said Scythe Goddard as they approached. He told a servant passing with a tray of drinks to give Rowan a glass of champagne. When Rowan didn't take it, Scythe Vulture grabbed one and put it in Rowan's hand before disappearing into the distance, leaving Rowan to fend for himself. Please, enjoy, said Goddard. I serve only Dom Perignon, which is a very expensive champagne. Rowan took a sip, wondering if an underage Scythe's apprentice should get marked down for drinking, and then he remembered that such rules didn't apply to him anymore, so he took another sip. I arranged this little party in your honor, said the Scythe, gesturing to the party all around them. What do you mean, in my honor? Exactly that. This is your party. Do you like it? The surreal display of excess was even more intoxicating than the champagne. But did he like it? Mostly he just got weird, and weirder still to know that he was the guest of honor. I don't know. I never had a party before, Rowan told him. It was true. His parents had seen so many birthdays by the time Rowan was born, they had stopped celebrating them. He was lucky if they even remembered to get him a gift. Well then, said Scythe Goddard, let this be the first of many. Rowan had to remind himself that this man, with the perfect smile, secreting charisma instead of sweat, was the man who had manipulated him and Citra into mortal competition. But it was hard not to be dazzled by his style. And as distasteful as all this spectacle was, it still made his adrenaline flow. The Scythe patted the seat beside him for Rowan to sit, and Rowan took his place at the Scythe's right hand. Does the 18th commandment say that a Scythe can't own anything but his robe, ring, and journal? Correct, said Scythe Goddard brightly, and I own none of them. The food is donated by generous benefactors. The guests are here by choice, and this fine estate has been graciously loaned to me for as long as I choose to grace its halls. Upon the mention of the estate, a man cleaning the pool looked up at them for a moment before returning to his labors. You should reread the commandments, Scythe Goddard said. You'll find that nothing in them demands that Scythes shun the creature comforts that make life worth living. That bleak interpretation by old guard Scythes is a relic from another time. Rowan did not offer any further opinion on the subject. It was Scythe Faraday's humble and serious old guard nature that made an impression on Rowan. Had he been approached by Scythe Goddard with enticements of rock star glamour in exchange for taking of lives, he would have declined. But Faraday was dead, and Rowan was here, looking out on strangers that were here for his benefit. If it's my party, shouldn't it have people I know? A Scythe is a friend to the world. Open your arms and embrace it. It seemed Scythe Goddard had an answer for everything. Your life is about to change, Rowan Dadich, he then said, waving his arms to indicate the pool and the partiers and the servants and the elaborate spread of food just past the shallow end that kept being replenished. In fact, it already has. Among the pottergoers was a girl who seemed remarkably out of place. She was young, 9 or 10 at the most, and completely oblivious to the party around her as she frolicked in the shallow end of the pool. It looks like one of your guests brought their kids to the party, Rowan then commented. That, said Goddard, is Ismay, and you would be wise to treat her well. She is the most important person you will meet today. How so? That chubby little girl is the key to the future, so you'd better hope she likes you. Rowan would have continued picking at Rowan's enigmatic response, but his attention was grabbed by a beautiful party girl approaching in a bikini that seemed almost painted on. Rowan realized a moment too late that he was staring. She grinned and he blushed, looking away. Adeline, would you be so kind as to give my apprentice a massage? Yes, Your Honor, said the girl. Maybe later, Rowan then said. Nonsense, said the Scythe. You need to loosen up. And Adeline has magical hands skilled in Swedish technique. Your body will thank you. She took Rowan by the hand, and that killed any resistance. He rose, and he let himself be led away. If our young man is pleased by your efforts, Scythe Goddard then called after them, I will allow you to kiss my ring. As Adeline led him to the massage tent, Rowan thought, in 8 months, I am going to die. So perhaps he could allow himself a little indulgence along the way. And that is the end of chapter 20. Here is the journal at the end. I am disturbed by those who revere us far more than those disdain us. Too many put us on a pedestal. Too many long to be one of us, and knowing that they can never be makes their longing even greater, for all Scythes are apprentices in their youth. It is either naivety in thinking that we are somehow of a higher order of being, or it is the product of a depraved heart. For who but the depraved would revel in the taking of lives? For a time years ago, there were groups who would emulate and imitate us. They would fashion robes like those of Scythes. They would wear rings that looked similar to ours. For many, it was just costume play, but for some, actually to pretend to be Scythe, fooling others, granting false immunity, everything short of gleaning. There are laws against impersonating workers in any profession, but no law prevents anyone from impersonating a Scythe. Since the Thunderhead has no jurisdiction over the Scythotown, it cannot pass any laws concerning us. It is an unforeseen glitch in the separation of Scythe and State. However, it wasn't a glitch for long. In the year of the Stingray, at the 63 World Conclave, it was decided that all such impostors shall be gleaned on sight, publicly and most violently. While one might expect such an edict to produce a bloodbath, very few gleanings ever took place. Once word got out, the posers shed their false robes and vanished into the work world. To this day, it remains, but rarely needs to be evoked because few are foolish enough to impersonate a Scythe. And yet now and again, I hear at conclave the rare tale of a Scythe coming face to face with an impostor and having to glean them. Usually the conversation is about the inconvenience of it, how the Scythe must track down the impostor's family to grant immunity and such. But I wonder more about the impostor. What was it that he had hoped to achieve? Was it the lure of the forbidden? Were they enticed by the danger of being caught? Or did they simply wish to leave this life so badly that they chose one of the few direct paths to annihilation? From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curry. And that is the end of chapter 20. Thank you for listening. Next time I read, I'll be in person. Boop, boop. Back to school, January 11th. See you guys.